thank you for doing this. And
do you know how many people are in?
I can't actually tell because I'm on the same end. There we go. Hello and welcome to the TARGETjobs Virtual National Pupillage Fair, taking place remotely this year for the first time ever from various home offices, living rooms and kitchens around the country. If you are just joining us for the talks program today, my name is Matt. I'm an editor with TARGETjobs Law and the Pupillages Handbook. If you have any questions that you would like to ask at the end, please save them till the end of the talk and click the like button on any questions that you want to be answered so they move up to the top of the list. I want to welcome today Julia Witting, the Head of Supervision at the Bar Standards Board. The Bar Standards Board have been doing the talks program for some years now and have just undertaken one of the biggest reforms to bar training I think certainly I've ever seen since my time on TARGETjobs Law. And if you were in Mason Bloom's talk this morning, you will know that it has made it somewhat cheaper, somewhat more accessible, and somewhat easier to change your mind when you're making your career choices. So it has been very, very interesting. And we are very grateful to have Julia here to talk to us today about what you need to know about pupillage. Julia, I'm going to hand over to you and I will come back with questions from the viewers at the end.
Thank you very much, Matt. That's a really helpful introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here and to be able to speak to you all, and even in these unusual circumstances. So yes, as Matt said, there's a lot that's changed, and this is a really good opportunity to talk to you and just to explain to you what you need to know about pupillage and bar training more widely. So the BSB has quite a wide remit, but today I'm here to talk to you about our role in setting education and training requirements for becoming a barrister. But you can see on screen there that these are some of our other responsibilities for the Bar Standards Board as the regulator of barristers in England and Wales. Matt mentioned a couple of words there which are really important. These are the principles behind the recent changes that we've made. So our mission has been to make bar training more flexible, more accessible, more affordable, but still sustaining those high standards that the bar has a reputation for. There are three components to bar training, and to qualify as a barrister you'll need to complete those three components. So you'll need a degree, and that's of at least a 2-2. So that's a law degree or a degree in any other subject, followed by a graduate diploma in law, which is typically a full-time 1-year course or a part-time 2-year course. Then there's the vocational component, which is the postgraduate course that typically lasts a year full-time, but again, there are part-time options available. Previous years, that's been known as the BPTC, the Bar Professional Training Course, but that's changing now. And then the third component is pupillage, which is the period of work-based learning. Again, typically that's 12 months full-time, but there are some providers now offering part-time pupillages, which is interesting and fits in with what I was saying about increased flexibility. So there are three components of training, but there are 4 possible pathways now. And those are the 4 listed on the screen there. The 3-step pathway is the one that you'll have been familiar with. So that's the law degree, followed by the vocational component, followed by pupillage. But what's new now is the opportunity to follow the 4-step pathway. And in this route, you can take the vocational component of training in 2 parts. So you can hop on and hop off your training. And as I've said, that increases the flexibility, but it also helps with the affordability as well. Some providers are offering some online courses available, which was quite exciting when it was first introduced, but I guess we've all got a bit more used to online training now. But nevertheless, it does increase the flexibility and helps to manage the cost of the courses. The third option there is the integrated pathway, and it's possible to combine the academic and the vocational components in a sort of integrated master's programme. The fourth pathway there is the apprenticeship pathway. That's not currently available, but we do hope in the future that that will be offered in the way that it's possible to follow an apprenticeship route for solicitors and some other professions. And but in the meantime, we're encouraging a wider range of organisations to get involved in delivering pupillage, and we've made some of our rules more flexible so that there are opportunities for them to do that. So you have the opportunity now to think about which pathway suits you, and that link is to our website, which is on the training qualification section of our website. And we've got quite a helpful list there, all those that are authorised by us to provide the vocational component. And you can see there what the different options are that are available, and you can see all those that we've authorised to provide the training. So that's quite a useful link to look at. So on to pupillage. Pupillage, so this is the work-based component, and as I said, that's typically 12 months, and in the second part of your pupillage you'll be able to apply for a provisional practice certificate, and you'll be able to take on cases of your own and start earning at that point. But the minimum pupillage funding is, as I've listed on the screen here, which is 18,960 for London, 16,601 outside London. It's a bit of an odd figure, the one there, but that's because we've based it on the recommendations by the Living Wage Foundation. So we've done the calculation based on their hourly rates. These are the rates for 2021. They come into effect in January, and we uplift those annually. But many pupils will receive much more than that. So that's just the minimum that we mandate. All pupillages must be advertised on the Pupillage Gateway website. So that's run by the Bar Council. That's been a mandatory requirement for some time now. But what's new from this year is that everybody advertising pupillage has to keep to a timetable that we mandate. So the timetable for advertising runs from November, and the mandatory timetable applies to all stages of recruitment through to the offer stage. So the whole timetable runs from the end of November, the ads for this year went up yesterday, through to mid-May. Because of the impact of COVID this year, we're offering a bit more flexibility to pupillage providers. So there is an opportunity to make offers after that May deadline this year. We just wanted to keep a bit more flexibility in this year to help everybody. Also, a helpful thing that we've introduced this year is mandating that there must be written agreements for pupillage. So that's really just to make sure that both parties, pupils and those offering pupillage, are aware of obligations, and that really sets out in one document all the obligations that your pupillage training provider is obliged to meet. I would say entry to pupillage is very competitive, so your chances of getting pupillage are much better if you get a better class of degree and you do well in your vocational training. And a statistic you might be interested in, of those EU and UK BPTC graduates, 45% of those who enrolled on the course between 2013 and 2016 had started pupillage by March 2019. So today's a real opportunity for you to talk to the pupillage providers that are at the fair, Ask them what their criteria are when they're selecting candidates for interview. What are they looking for when they're interviewing and through the assessment process? Some of them provide really good information on their website, so it's really worth looking at that. And we're encouraging them to be much more transparent about their application process and what it is that they're looking for, but also the opportunities they offer at the end of pupillage. So, you know, what are your chances of getting tenancy afterwards? What do people typically go on to do at the end of their tenancy? I'm sure that many of you are wondering about the impact of COVID on the profession and what that might mean for pupillage. So we are very conscious that the lockdown earlier this year, and of course that's been in a fluctuating state this year in different parts of the country, it has caused a lot of disruption, and there has been a financial impact on many chambers and practitioners. We've kept in touch with chambers and other organisations offering pupillage since March, since the lockdown, and we've spoken to around 160 out of the 260 odd organisations that offer pupillage. We were really encouraged that all those pupillages that had started in March were able to continue. So nobody pulled out of pupillages, everybody was able to continue and see their pupillages through, which is really great news. The evidence that's emerging, and we have published a report on this on our website if you're interested. Those areas that have been most impacted, so particularly those court-based practices, particularly criminal, family law, have found it most difficult in this period, and we do think that there will be an impact on pupillages over the next year or so. But we're continuing to monitor that, and we're doing everything we can to encourage and support the profession to continue to provide pupillage, and there is a real commitment by the profession to do that. I have to stress, obviously, you know, it's a fluid situation, but we are keeping in touch, and whether there's anything that we can do as a regulator, we will help and to make sure that pupillages can continue. And we did that, for example, this year by offering waivers to make sure that people could continue from their vocational training through to pupillage before they had their results. So lastly, I want to say something about diversity at the bar. This may be the image that people think of when they think of the bar. But this picture is taken from an old TV series called Rumpole of the Bailey, and that run from the 70s to the 90s. So that's quite out of date now. Diversity is a key priority for the Bar Standards Board. We're doing a lot of work in this area. There's a lot of research that we've done and continue to do, and we've got a strategy in place tackling various aspects of diversity and promoting diversity. So I think the key messages about that are that the bar is definitely heading in the right direction. It's slow but steady progress. There are some statistics there for you to see. So over half of those entering the profession are now women, and the proportion of barristers who are BAME continues to increase. As I say there, we are committed, and there is a lot of work in progress in this area. So I'm open to any questions. I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So I just want to say thank you very much, Julia, for that, because there's some real useful things in there, particularly to do with the impact of COVID-19 that I know was a really kind of an area of, I mean, it's concerning for everybody in the world at the moment, but I know that a lot of chambers were worried they were going to have to defer or pull pupillages. So it's nice to know that wasn't the case at the end of the day. And it was also very nice to see Rumpole of the Bailey. So if anybody out there is watching this, please go away and Google who Rumpole of the Bailey is. It will come up in conversation at some point, I'm sure. So I like what's happened in previous years is people tend to be a little bit nervous about asking questions, particularly of the Bar Standards Board, because you kind of oversee the profession as a whole. So I just wanted to kind of ask a couple of little questions that I know students have said to me after the talks before they're a little bit too nervous to ask. And I think the first one was, you know, that accessibility, that flexibility that comes with the changes to bar training at the moment. There was a concern that this would make it easier to get pupillage for some people. So that's kind of, you know, is it that people are worried about competition? It's an already competitive environment. Has it made it easier for more people to get into that competitive environment, or is it a different case? I don't know if you care to sort of share your thoughts on that.
Yes, well, the new vocational bar training courses have launched this year, so we've been really encouraged about the range of offer that has come forward, and it's certainly reduced the actual cost. I mean, the affordability that we were looking for was not just about the cost, it was about the value that the qualification provides, but certainly the cost of it has come down, so that should make it much more accessible for a wider range. And so we've been really encouraged at the speed at which the vocational providers have taken up the new flexible offers that are possible. And as I said, I hope in the future that I know that some employers are interested in the apprenticeship pathway. So again, you know, I hope that that's going to offer some new opportunities for particularly among the larger employers who we know have expressed an interest in that because they already have solicitor apprenticeship. So I think there are lots of opportunities there, and you know, as I said, looking at those different vocational pathways that are available now, you know, do have a good shop around. You can shop around now. Yes, I mean, getting into pupillage, there's no doubt it is competitive. So, you know, my top tip is, you know, look at what the chambers and others are looking for. Usually they're looking for, you know, being able to demonstrate a real interest in becoming a barrister, and, you know, what you've done, you know, outside by way of work experience, voluntary experience, but also anything else that you've done that may be relevant to the skills to becoming a barrister. And we've one of the documents that we've got on our stall at the moment is the professional statement, and it's really worth looking at that. That's sort of available on our website as well. So that'll show you the skills and experience that you need to qualify as a barrister. So that'll give you an indication of what it takes to be a barrister.
Thank you. I think that's really key. Is like, as you're saying, it's about the skills and the abilities, and that's what you're kind of, you know, it's still going to be competitive regardless, but how you get there, if you've got the skills, you can make it through to the bar. I think that you know, that's what people should take away. I've got the questions starting to come in from the feed now. So we've actually, I'm going to start because we've got a couple of questions about mini pupillages as well to start with. So someone has asked, please can you tell us about the importance of mini pupillages? It's the first question.
Yes, well, mini pupillages give you a bit of an insight into life at the bar. So if you're able to do them, I think that's useful. I think we as a regulator are encouraging, so they're called AETOs, Authorised Education and Training Organisations. So that's the chambers and the employers that provide pupillages. So we know that often they look at, have you had some experience of doing mini pupillages, but we know that that's a potential cost to some people. So, you know, taking the time out, maybe if you're already in employment or if you've got other caring responsibilities, it's not so easy to do mini pupillages. So we're really encouraging ATOs not to look too narrowly at that as a criteria for kind of demonstrating your interest in the bar. But you know, if you've done other things in your life experience that you think would enable you to demonstrate that you've got that potential to be a good barrister, then, you know, I think that's equally important, and we're encouraging AETOs to look more widely than just the number of mini pupillages you've done. But it is a factor that they look at, and if you do have the opportunity, I know that a lot are doing them online at the moment, so that those mini pupillages are continuing, but lots of chambers offer them and offer them throughout the year, so they're not constrained by our advertising rules.
Thank you. And I think you've sort of answered the next one that we have a little bit on mini pupillage, which is someone has written in saying, I am in my final year of my law degree. I would like to apply for pupillage this year. Unfortunately, all of my mini pupillages have been cancelled due to the pandemic. I do have some bar experience, but not enough. Do I need to have mini pupillages to apply for pupillage? I know you've been saying, there's different experiences. You're encouraging chambers to look at other things. Would you happen to have any examples of the sorts of things that you would like chambers to consider?
Well, I know the free representation unit are here today. Go and talk to them. They're always looking for volunteers, and there are lots of volunteering opportunities. I know that some universities have law clinics where it's possible to get that kind of experience. And in the environment we're in at the moment, there's a huge amount of unmet need out there. So those other kinds of opportunities are for sure out there. But yeah, I mean, talk to the chambers and ask them, if you're not able to provide a mini pupillage, what else can I do that you might look at favourably. But volunteering, if you can, if you have the time to do it. But I think also, as I say, look more widely at your own experience. What is it that you have to offer that would make you a good barrister?
Thank you very much. And I think that's excellent advice. The FRU are here. They're actually giving a talk at, as well at the fair today, but do go and speak to them on the stand. They are lovely people, and they do some incredible work, and it's very, very good for your CV if you're applying for pupillage. There's also just because Julia mentioned diversity, the way that the bar is shifting. At the moment, if you check out our talks program in room 1 at 2:20 to 3 p.m, we actually have we're calling Be Yourself at the Bar, which is people who are going to be talking about their experiences from a variety of different backgrounds in going to the bar, and you might get some inspiration for the sort of skills and experience from that you could use for yourself from that talk. And as Julia said, go and talk to chambers and just ask people, particularly if they are already in practice, ask them about their experience, because they might inspire. You might think, oh, actually I have done that, I just haven't put it on my CV yet. So really, really good advice there. Thank you. So we've got a slightly more technical one here. Are there any concessions for those of over 5 years call who have been impacted by COVID-19? For example, an extension of the 5-year limit on applying for pupillage, I assume that should mean.
Yes, well, I have to say, first of all, we've published a lot of FAQs on our website about bar training and pupillage, so do have a look through those. There's lots of information on there. But we have said that if people have been particularly impacted by that 5-year rule limit this year, then there are opportunities to apply to us for waivers, and we will look favourably on that, because we know that there haven't been as many pupillages offered this year. So yeah, do have a look at that. Our authorisations team at the Bar Standards Board is the one that would be looking at your application for an extension to that, and we'll be looking favourably at those that have been impacted this year.
Thank you. And I think I've asked this one last year as well, or the year before. Someone is asking, is there an estimated time for when the apprenticeship is likely to come into effect?
Yes, that's difficult to say, because it's not something that we can offer without the interest of employers, and we have to have a certain number of employers come forward in order to be able to offer the apprenticeship pathway. So it's the government framework, and we're dependent on employers coming forward and meeting that framework. But as I say, I know that there are some that are definitely interested. I don't think it's going to be quick in the next year or so. I think it will take a while to come in, but I hope that it will be there in the future. I'm sorry, but it's difficult to put a time frame to that.
Thank you. And I think one thing that we covered before, just to kind of clarify a little bit, is that it would still involve a degree, as there would still be a degree as part of some form of apprenticeship. Is that right?
Well, the 3 components will still be a requirement, but the way that that's delivered. So it would depend on how people wanted to deliver it, but there's the potential to combine the components or some of the components through the apprenticeship pathway. So it might be, for example, you combine the vocational and pupillage component, or combine all three, but that, as I say, it will depend what, how the offer comes forward, what people want to be authorised to deliver.
Thank you. I know it takes a long time. I mean, the solicitor's profession was talking for a long time before it was actually implemented about bringing apprenticeships in. It's not a quick and easy press a button and it happens kind of process.
No, but the great thing is that there are employers who already offer the apprenticeship route for solicitors, so they will have had experience of it and know that it works for them. So we're not starting from scratch in the bar.
Perfect. So another question here. I'm going to go down because this list is quite long now.
That's fine.
So what sort of practical work is being done to improve diversity at the bar, particularly for BAME aspiring barristers?
Yeah, so personally, I've been involved in a project looking at recruitment and advertising. So we've looked at the criteria that people use to recruit to the bar. And as a result of that, we've worked together with the Bar Council to update their fair recruitment guide. So encouraging people at the front line of recruiting to be aware of unconscious bias, to look at the criteria that maybe are creating a barrier to diversity, not just to BAME diversity, but to also socioeconomic diversity, particularly because of the emphasis that's put on academic criteria. We have an equality and diversity strategy that is looking at various aspects of diversity. One of the areas they're looking at this year is in relation to equality and diversity policies and the impact that those policies have during the vocational component of training, because obviously that's that's a potential barrier at that point as well. We know that there is a drop-off in diversity between those completing vocational component and those starting pupillage, so that's an area that we're particularly focused on. So whilst those starting pupillage are roughly proportionate to the population as a whole in terms of BAME background, we know that there is the proportion in the vocational component is higher. So for some reason there's a drop off. So that's something that we're particularly focused on. And then there is a range of work to look at policies and approach to diversity in chambers and in pupillage training. There's quite a lot of work going on. If you want to look at that in more detail, there's quite a lot published on our website about that. So we have our equality and diversity strategy, we have the research that we've published, and yesterday, for example, we published a race equality statement that may be of interest for people to read.
Thank you. And you really can see we're interviewing a lot of practicing barristers for TARGETjobs Law and for the Pupillages Handbook, and it is something that comes up time and time again. Everybody is very conscious of this. It's very clear that that there are policies in place, and there's a lot more transparency around the pupillage process. It's a really interesting shift. So for whoever asked that question, I'm sorry I can't see names on the feed that I have here. Please do go and look into it, and please do speak to people about it, because if you've got any doubts about applying or anything like that, you will find a lot of people at the fair today will be able to put your mind at ease, at least a little bit, I hope. But thank you, Julia.
We know there's more to do, though.
Appreciated. So I've got another question here. I recall a BSB representative at a different event speaking about the possibility of allowing more than one pupil per supervisor to enable chambers to take on more pupils. Is this something that's being considered at all?
Yes, we've introduced that. So that's been in effect now for a while. So the situation now is that in the self-employed bar, a pupil supervisor can have two pupils, one in the non-practicing period and one in the practicing period. But for employers, so in the employed bar, there is an opportunity for employers to apply as part of the authorisation process for a completely different structure. So that recognises that larger employers might they might have bigger HR functions, more people involved in training, different management structures and so forth. So the Government Legal Service has taken up that opportunity to structure its pupil supervisor training a little bit differently. And certainly that flexibility has helped during the COVID period, where perhaps people were unwell over the last few months. So it's enabled pupillages to continue. I think the bar is still fairly traditionally taking one pupil to one pupil supervisor in the main, but that flexibility is there, and there are some that are taking that up.
Thank you. So we have a question about the Pupilage Gateway. There have been some chambers advertising on the Pupilage Gateway outside of the usual timetables in the past, which provided more flexibility. Will the BSB consider changing the current timetable mandate in the future?
Yeah, so we've just introduced it from the beginning of November, so we don't intend to change it, but nevertheless, we will be looking at the impact that it's had. So all the changes that we've made to bar training are subject to an evaluation programme to see that they've had the impact that they were intended to have. Certainly, so I was closely involved in this piece of work to mandate the timetable. We thought really hard this year about whether it was the right time to introduce it, given the impact of COVID. We decided in the end to go ahead because those principles of accessibility were really important, and that was a really important driver of introducing this, so that everybody knows when pupillages are available and everybody has an equal access to those pupillages. As I said, we've left a bit of flexibility in the programme this year, so for those who are not in a position to make a decision about recruiting in May, can continue to make offers up till August this year. There also remains the opportunity for waivers. Any waivers that are given, we'll publish those so that people know that some are potentially recruiting outside that timetable. Obviously, we'll take into account that it's very unusual times, but we hope that in the main, most will keep to that timetable. There are potentially some of the bigger employers who recruit to a slightly different timetable, and they may be given a waiver for their particular way of recruiting. But again, the information will be published so that everybody knows that. Interestingly, the CPS have said that they're going to align their recruitment programme to our timetable now, which is good.
Wow. Okay. No, that's really interesting. I just, as Julia said, go visit the Bar Standards Board. They have a stand at the fair. Visit their website for information on waivers and changes. I think that's really useful. So we have a little bit of confusion. Are vocational course providers going to start to provide work-based types of pupillage? I say this because they're ATOs and confuse me a little bit. It's a confusing topic.
Yes, ATOs, so that's the new term that we're using, Authorised Education and Training Organisation. So we're using the same term for the vocational providers, as we used to call them, the BPTC providers, and for pupillage providers. So we're using the one term. As I say, the apprenticeship pathway potentially offers the opportunity to combine different components, but it's just that we're using the one term AETO for everybody that is authorised to provide bar training, be it vocational pupillage.
Thank you. I think we've kind of covered this one a little bit already, but will those doing mini pupillages this year be viewed any differently in future pupillage applications due to many of the mini pupillages being conducted remotely? I think we've kind of covered that one already. Julia, would you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, everybody recognises that it's been a difficult time, so I think there's been a lot of efforts to get all sorts of training delivered online. So the inns have been offering their qualifying sessions online. Pupillage training, a lot of it has had to be delivered online during the lockdown when all the the courts were closed. They're starting to open up now. I think everybody recognises that these are just the times that we're in. So I hope not. I hope everybody recognises that it is what it is.
Thank you. it really is a case of I think asking around when you're contacting people at the fair today, because you know, we're all getting used to this. We're all getting used to the technical issues and the online stuff and the Zoom and the Teams and whatnot. So please do just bear that in mind when you're asking questions. So I've got an interesting one. Hello, I'm an international student from Malaysia, and I'm interested in practicing in the UK after the bar course. I've been informed that I will not be able to get the working visa if I don't take the LLM together with the bar course. Is this statement true? And may I know the reason why? Thank you.
We don't, the Bar Standards Board doesn't have a role to play in visas. The best people to speak to are the vocational training providers and the Bar Council. So depending on which stage you're at, it's best to talk to those organisations.
Thank you. And that's something that we say a lot on Target Jobs as well. If you do go looking around the Target Jobs website, you can find more information on visas and how you need to approach them. So please do go away and do your research on that as well. I'm going to keep going down the question list. Because I'm just conscious we've probably got time for one or two more questions. So I'm just going to try and get through a couple here. Does the BSB have any plans, this is following up on diversity, have any plans to enforce diversity hiring, i.e. require chambers to hire a percentage of pupils or tenants from the BAME group, for example?
That's an interesting question. We don't have any plans at the moment. I don't know whether that would be considered for the future or not. As I say, there is a lot of work in progress at the moment to look at not just the policies, but the impact those policies are having. So we don't have any plans to enforce it at the moment, but who knows?
And I think we'll make this the last one looking at the time. Could you please explain how the regulation requirements for recruiting a pupil differ for traditional chambers and solo practitioners? This is an interesting one.
How the requirements for how they differ. Not sure in what context you were thinking, but there's no particular differentiation. I think if a sole practitioner is recruiting a pupil, then we would look to see that they're able to offer sufficient by way of range of experience, because obviously that would be more challenging in a sole practice. We don't have restrictions against sole practitioners taking pupils, but typically pupillage tends to be in chambers or employers.
Thank you. And I think they're all under the same umbrella as far as things go from what you've just said there, that they all have to stick to the same requirements. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
so we have an authorization framework, and people have to meet the criteria in the authorization framework in order to be authorized to provide pupillage.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there because we have run out of time. I would just like to say a big thank you from Target Jobs and from the Target Jobs Law Virtual Pupillage Fair Talks programme for Julia Witting, Head of Supervision at the Bar Standards Board, for joining us. And please do go and check out the Bar Standards Board stand at the virtual fair, where you can find more information about the work that they do and how essential they will be to your career if you make it as a barrister. Julia, is there anywhere else you'd like to redirect people for more information as well?
Yes, we'll do. I'll be at the stall. I've got a couple of colleagues at the stall as well. So if we haven't managed to get round to your questions on the chat, then do come and talk to us this afternoon. Very happy to answer your questions. And if you have specific questions about any kind of technical aspects of waivers or applications, our authorisations team at the BSB is the one to speak to.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for taking part in the talks today, Julia.
You're very welcome.
We'll see you all in the next talks. I think we're having a short break for lunch. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye-bye.